food for thought about the Great Famine, which killed millions in the 1930s. Kiev claims it was genocide orchestrated by the Kremlin, but, as RT's Alexei Yaroshevsky reports, the papers show a different story.
These two elderly women do not know each other and live in different parts of what used to be the Soviet Union. But more than 7 decades on, they remember equally well how the devastating famine of the 1930s came to their homes.
I was left all alone. My school principal came and asked me if I could go somewhere. I was a little kid and had nowhere to go. The principal said, "Come with me to the school, we'll give you food." That's how I was saved.
Everyone was lost. Everyone died. I was afraid to come across a dead person. The dead hadn't even been buried because there were too many dead, and there was no one left to bury them. We had a strong famine.
From 1929, for 5 years, regions across the Soviet Union were hit by famine, which killed millions. The Soviets' collectivization program is partly to blame. Peasants had grain taken away to build up stocks, but when the harvests were bad, they were left with virtually nothing and faced starvation. One of the worst affected areas was the Soviet Ukraine.
More than 80% of the Soviet Union's grain production was situated in Ukraine and the Kuban region. And so these regions saw the most intensive repression and harsh deprival measures. And that's also where the famine was felt the most.
Nowadays, the issue of the 1930s famine has become a bone of contention between Russia and Ukraine. Kiev regards it as a genocide by Joseph Stalin, directed solely at Ukrainians, an attempt to destroy the nation. Moscow is firm in its view it was a common tragedy for the whole country. For instance, Kazakhstan lost almost a third of its population. Ukraine's President Yushchenko has started an international campaign to have the famine acknowledged as a crime against humanity.
We've managed to establish a figure of 5.5 million people, and that's according to all the material we have gathered. But there could be a little more if we look at other documents.
The death toll is one of the things historians cannot agree on to this day. Moscow thinks it's about half the figure claimed by Kiev. To try and clear the air, declassified documents from the Russian Security Service archives have been published for the first time.
What this book reveals is the inability of the local authorities to inform the Kremlin of the unfolding tragedy. By the time Moscow realized the scale, it was too late, and hundreds of thousands had died.
Indeed, in a letter dated October 1932 from the head of Ukraine's Communist Party Stanislav Kasior to Joseph Stalin, he described the situation as stable. By that time, the famine has already claimed millions. In another declassified note, Stalin urged grain to be delivered to those suffering in Ukraine. It contradicts the allegations by Kiev. The leader deliberately slashed all help to the starving regions. According to the book's authors, they wanted to use declassified documents from all the former Soviet republics affected. Kazakhstan and Belarus agreed, but Ukraine demanded conditions. Kiev wanted a chapter reflecting what it described as a genocide caused by the famine, something the authors could not agree with. This new book is unlikely to ease friction between Moscow and Kiev over the 1930s famine. History and propaganda are divided by a fine line. But for those who survived the dreadful times on both sides of the border, they wish the world will never see the horrors of a famine like that again. Alexei Yaroshevsky, RT, Moscow.
You're watching RT live from Moscow. Still ahead in the next